Thugs tried to humiliate Steven Seagal inside a daytime nightclub. Sunlight poured through tall glass walls. The music was low and lazy. The crowd was thin and relaxed. Steven Seagal walked in quietly. No security. No attention-seeking. Just calm steps and steady eyes. He wore simple clothes. Nothing flashy. Nothing loud. He looked like a man enjoying a peaceful afternoon. That is when they noticed him. A group of thugs stood near the bar. Young. Arrogant. Laughing too loud. They scanned the room for entertainment. Their eyes locked on Steven. One of them smirked. Another nudged his friend. Whispers turned into laughter. Look at this old guy. Wrong place, Grandpa. Did he get lost on the way to a park? They laughed harder. Steven did not react. He sat down calmly. He placed his sunglasses on the table. He looked around as if enjoying the atmosphere. That silence annoyed them. One thug stepped closer. He mocked Steven's jacket. Another mocked his age. A third made a joke meant to humiliate him. People nearby noticed. Some looked uncomfortable. Some pretended not to see. No one intervened. Steven remained still. The thugs thought they had control. They thought fear was coming. They thought respect was earned through noise. They were wrong. Steven slowly lifted his head. Not angry. Not rushed. Just aware. His eyes told a different story. A story of discipline. A story of experience. A story written long before this moment. The laughter around him began to fade. The air changed. The room felt heavier. Even the music seemed quieter. The thugs felt it too. But their pride pushed them forward. One of them crossed the final line. That was the moment everything changed. Because they did not know who he was. They did not know what he carried within. They did not know the price of disrespect. And within seconds, in front of everyone, in broad daylight, they realized their mistake. It was early afternoon inside a popular city lounge. The rush of the night had not arrived yet. The atmosphere was calm and open. Soft music played in the background. Sunlight streamed through tall glass walls. It reflected off polished floors. Shadows moved slowly across the room. Everything felt unhurried and relaxed. Bartenders cleaned glasses. Servers moved quietly between tables. A few customers talked in low voices. Others sat alone enjoying the calm. The lounge felt safe. Predictable. Ordinary. Then Steven Seagal walked in. There was no announcement. No pause in the music. No heads turning at first. He wore simple clothes. A plain jacket. Dark jeans. Nothing that demanded attention. He looked like someone passing time. Like someone with nowhere urgent to be. He scanned the room briefly. Not searching for approval. Not searching for recognition. He chose a corner table near the window. A quiet place away from the center. A place where he could sit unnoticed. Steven sat down slowly. He rested his hands on the table. He watched the light shift outside. To most people he looked ordinary. Just another older man enjoying a quiet afternoon. But not everyone saw him that way. Near the bar stood a group of loud men. Their voices were sharp. Their laughter cut through the calm. They had arrived earlier. Already drinking. Already restless. They thrived on attention. On being seen. On being heard. One of them noticed Steven first. He leaned toward his friends. He whispered something. The group turned their heads. Eyes narrowed. Smiles appeared. They watched Steven sit alone. They judged his clothes. His posture. His silence. One laughed quietly. Another shook his head. This place is not for old men. The words were not shouted. They were meant to sting. Meant to test. Steven heard them. He did not respond. He remained calm. Unbothered. Still, that silence confused them. They expected anger. Fear. A reaction. Instead they got nothing. The group whispered again. Their confidence grew. They mistook calm for weakness. They mistook silence for fear. Around them, others noticed the tension. Some glanced over and looked away. Some lowered their voices. No one stepped in. Steven picked up his glass. He took a slow sip. His expression never changed. Years of discipline showed in that moment. Years of control. Years of restraint. The men near the bar laughed louder. They wanted attention. They wanted dominance. They did not understand one thing. True strength does not announce itself. Steven did not come to prove anything. He did not come to impress. He came for peace. But peace is often tested by arrogance. The afternoon sun continued to shine. The music continued to play. The lounge stayed unaware. For now. Backhand index pointing right. Comment below where you are watching from. Backhand index pointing right. Respect to everyone who stays calm under pressure. The men finally moved. They left the bar area. They walked toward Steven together. Slow steps. Wide shoulders. Smirks on their faces. They surrounded his table. Blocking the light. Blocking the exit. One stood in front of him. Another to his side. Two more behind. They wanted control. They wanted eyes on them. The first man laughed loudly. He mocked the way Steven walked earlier. He mocked the calm pace. He mocked the confidence. Another pointed at his face. He joked about age. He joked about time passing. He joked about weakness. A third leaned closer. Too close. Breath heavy. Voice sharp. "Why so quiet, old man?" The group laughed again. Steven did not answer. He did not move. He did not look up. That silence irritated them. One of them pushed his shoulder. Not hard. Just enough to provoke. The glass on the table shook. Steven adjusted it calmly. That made them angrier. Another man knocked the drink on purpose. Liquid spilled across the table. It ran toward Steven's hand. Gasps filled the room. People stopped talking. Heads turned. Chairs stopped moving. Everyone watched. Some expected Steven to snap. Some expected fear. Some expected shouting. They got none of it. Steven slowly wiped his hand. He placed the napkin down. Careful. Controlled. The men exchanged looks. Why was he not reacting? One laughed louder to cover the tension. Another cracked his knuckles. They leaned closer again. The room felt tight. Heavy. Still. Steven finally lifted his head. Slow. Deliberate. He looked at each man. One by one. Not angry. Not rushed. Aware. The laughter died instantly. Something in his eyes changed the air. Years of discipline showed. Years of experience surfaced. The men felt it. Confidence turned to hesitation. No one spoke. The music kept playing softly. But it felt distant. One man swallowed hard. Another shifted his weight. The silence grew louder than the insults before. Steven stood up calmly. No sudden movement. No threat. Just presence. The men took a step back without realizing it. That moment exposed the truth. They were not in control anymore. They had crossed a line. And they knew it. The room stayed frozen. Every breath was heard. Silence replaced laughter. Steven stood up calmly. No anger on his face. No raised voice. No sudden movement. Just quiet confidence. The room held its breath. He straightened his jacket slowly. He placed his chair back where it belonged. Every move was controlled. That calm unsettled them. The men expected shouting. They expected threats. They expected fear. They got none of it. One thug stepped forward. His pride was wounded. His ego demanded control. He reached out to grab Steven. A careless move. A final mistake. What happened next was fast. Steven shifted his stance. Barely visible. Effortless. The thug felt pressure. Then balance disappeared. Then the floor rushed up. In seconds he was down. Hard. Still. The sound echoed through the lounge. Gasps filled the air. People stood frozen. Phones trembled in hands. Eyes widened in disbelief. Steven did not chase. He did not celebrate. He did not say a word. He simply stood there. The other men froze. Fear replaced arrogance. Smiles vanished. Confidence collapsed. They finally understood. This was not an ordinary man. This was not someone to mock. This was not someone to test. Years of training lived in his posture. Years of discipline shaped his calm. Years of control restrained his power. One thug took a step back. Another raised his hands slowly. No one dared to move closer. The room felt different now. The sunlight still poured in. The music still played. But everything had changed. Steven looked at them quietly. Not threatening. Not proud. Just aware. That awareness carried weight. The kind that silences rooms. The kind that ends chaos. Security near the entrance hesitated. They did not rush in. They sensed the shift. The men realized something painful. They had misjudged silence. They had mistaken calm for weakness. They had challenged experience with noise. And they lost. Steven stepped back slightly, creating space, giving them a chance to breathe. That gesture spoke louder than violence. One of the men swallowed hard. Another looked at his fallen friend. No one laughed now. Respect had entered the room. Not demanded. Not forced. Earned. Steven did not strike again. He did not need to. The lesson was already delivered. The men stood frozen. Their courage drained. Their voices gone. They finally understood who they had challenged. And they knew this moment would follow them forever. Security rushed in from the entrance. Fast steps. Alert faces. Hands ready. They expected chaos. They expected a fight. But they stopped immediately. The sight in front of them made no sense. One man on the floor. Others frozen in place. Steven Seagal standing calm and still. No aggression. No resistance. The lounge manager stepped forward. He was about to speak. Then he saw the face clearly. His expression changed instantly. Eyes widened. Breath caught. He knew that face. That calm presence. That posture. Wait. The manager raised his hand toward security. Stand down. The room grew quiet again. Security looked confused. They glanced at Steven. Then back at the manager. The manager walked closer. Slower now. Respectful. Sir. That single word shifted everything. Whispers began spreading across the lounge. Soft at first. Then louder. Is that who I think it is? No way. That is him. Phones slowly came out. Hands shaking. Screens lighting up. People zoomed in. People started recording. The mood changed completely. The men who mocked him earlier felt it. Their faces drained of color. Their confidence vanished. They finally understood why the air felt heavy. Why the silence felt powerful. This was Steven Seagal. Not a random guest. Not an easy target. A man known for discipline. For control. For presence. The fallen thug tried to move. Security stepped in calmly. The manager turned toward Steven. I am sorry, sir. We did not realize. Steven raised a hand gently, stopping him. No words yet. That silence spoke louder than shouting ever could. The lounge watched. Every eye fixed on him. The thugs stood stiff. Ashamed. Exposed. They had humiliated themselves. Steven looked around slowly. Not angry. Not proud. Just calm. That calm unsettled everyone more than violence ever could. The manager signaled security to escort the men away. No struggle. No noise. They obeyed silently. As they passed, the crowd heads turned away. No one laughed now. The sunlight still filled the room. But the energy had shifted completely. Steven took a small step back, creating distance. The manager leaned closer. Lowered voice. Sir, do you need anything? Steven shook his head. The lesson had already landed. The crowd continued whispering. The phones continued recording. A moment that started with disrespect now carried quiet awe. Backhand index pointing right, what would you do next? Backhand index pointing right, fight back or walk away. Backhand index pointing right, comment below. The thugs stood there shaking. Gone was the laughter. Gone was the arrogance. Their heads were lowered. Their voices unsteady. One of them spoke first. Barely audible. I am sorry. Another followed. Then another. Apologies spilled out fast and nervous. Not from pride. From fear. They finally understood the line they had crossed. Steven listened. He did not interrupt. He did not respond. His silence was enough. Security stepped in calmly. No shouting. No force needed. They guided the men toward the exit. Hands light on shoulders. Movements controlled. The lounge stayed quiet. Every step toward the door felt heavy. Eyes followed them. No one laughed. No one recorded now. The door opened. Sunlight spilled in. The thugs were escorted out in silence. The door closed behind them. The room exhaled. Steven adjusted his jacket slowly. Straightened the collar. Smoothed the sleeve. Simple movements. Unbothered. He pulled out his chair. Sat back down. Like nothing had happened. That calm spoke louder than any victory. People exchanged glances. Some shook their heads. Some nodded in respect. The manager stood nearby. Unsure what to say. Steven picked up a fresh glass placed quietly by a server. He nodded once in thanks. No applause. No attention-seeking. Just peace restored. The music continued softly. The afternoon light returned to feeling warm. Conversations slowly resumed. Chairs moved again. Glasses clinked. But something had changed. The room felt different. Respect had returned. Not forced. Not demanded. Earned through restraint. Steven sat calmly. Eyes focused ahead. He did not look around for approval. He did not acknowledge the whispers. He had nothing to prove. The lesson was already learned. Strength does not always shout. Power does not always strike. Sometimes it simply stands. The manager finally approached. Careful steps. Sir, thank you for your patience. Steven nodded politely. That was all. No speech. No lecture. The staff watched quietly. They understood the message. Treat everyone with respect. Always. Steven finished his drink slowly. He enjoyed the calm he came for. The sunlight shifted again. The lounge returned to normal. But those who witnessed the moment would never forget it. They saw arrogance collapse. They saw humility win. And they saw true respect return to the room. True strength does not seek attention. It does not announce itself. It does not demand respect through noise. Real power stays calm. It sits quietly. It observes. It waits. The world often confuses loudness with strength. It mistakes aggression for dominance. It celebrates those who shout the most. But real power moves differently. It does not need approval. It does not chase validation. It does not react to every insult. That afternoon proved a simple truth. Never judge someone by appearance. Clothes can deceive. Silence can mislead. Calm can be misunderstood. The quiet ones often carry the most strength. They have nothing to prove. Nothing to explain. Nothing to defend. Their confidence comes from within. Arrogance looks for weakness. It feeds on reactions. It survives on disrespect. But humility disarms it completely. Steven did not raise his voice. He did not threaten. He did not boast. He allowed actions to speak. And those actions ended the conflict without chaos. This is a lesson many ignore. Respect should never be selective. It should not depend on status. It should not depend on age. It should not depend on appearance. Every person deserves basic dignity. Because you never truly know who stands in front of you. The person you underestimate today may be the one who teaches you the hardest lesson tomorrow. Strength controlled is more powerful than strength displayed. Patience is not weakness. Silence is not fear. Calm is not surrender. They are signs of mastery. True leaders do not humiliate others. They elevate situations by staying composed. That lounge returned to normal. But the message remained. Power does not need to shout. Respect does not need to be forced. If you learned something from this story, if you believe humility is real strength, backhand index pointing right, type respect in the comments. And tell me your country below. I want to thank every kind soul watching, because a world built on respect is stronger than one ruled by ego.